Oh, hello, world. Welcome to Comic Book News. I'm your old pal, Dan Shaheen. Oh, man, we got something exciting today. We've got, we're going to take a step into the Red Room. So, wait a minute. Let me make some adjustments here. All right, let me get the ambiance just right because today we're going to be talking with one of my favorite current cartoonists. We're going to talk to Ed Piskor. We're going to talk to him about what? We're going to talk to him about the Red Room. We're going to talk about his new book coming out, but we're also going to talk about, as interesting as that is. Wait, let me lose this thing here. As interesting as Red Room is, and I haven't read all of it because it's not out yet. I've read some of it digitally. I'm a Patreon. I'm a subscriber at the hefty $3 level, and that gives me access to like all of the pages that Ed's putting out every month. So I've been reading this stuff, and I'm a little creeped out. Even for a weirdo dude in a red sex dungeon like this, it's some creepy stuff. I'm really looking forward though to it as paper because I just can't get into the I need my flashlight. I need to be under the covers. I need to be like somewhere comfortable. I can't be staring at a screen and photons, slapping me in the face. So I'm gonna get a paper copy as soon as possible. But how am I gonna do it? A lot of people pre-ordered this book directly from Fantagraphics, and that's great. You can get that if you're interested in, the regular version, the regular copies. Just do that, man. Buy the regular version. You get it direct from Fantagraphics, or you could order it from your local comic book shop. And I'm going to make an appeal here to you folks today. Use this number. See this number? This is a diamond code, okay? If you take this number, there is no easier way to make sure that you get this book than to take this number and put it in the hands of your comic shop guy. Now, you're going to need to hurry soon because see that MAR? That means that it's March. It's this month's previews. The order is due very soon, and you want to put in an order. But you could order the regular issue. But, man, there's variant covers. If you buy more than one, you can get some really special, cool-looking covers. We'll talk to Ed about those covers. I want to get a paper copy. I will be getting a paper copy because I love paper copies of comics because I review them. I want to see your comics here in the $1 Million Mailbox. I've got a huge stack. I'm bringing in Larry Young from AIT Planet Lair. We're going to look at all those submissions again. But if you want to send your comics in, we always need more. Send them to the $1 Million Mailbox, P.O. Box 1163, Arcata, California. Beautiful Arcata, California, 95518. Send it. We'll put it on the $1 Million Comics Cam, which is going to make an appearance today as we look at some of Young Ed's work. But now, without further ado, I want to bring in the man himself straight into the Red Room. Let's welcome, for the very first time on this show, Ed Piskor. Hey, Ed.
What's up, Dan? And I just composed myself after seeing your Red Room and your little kink mask and all that, man. If I knew it was going to be this kind of party, I would have stuck my dick in the mashed potatoes.
Big time. Well, and you'll notice I also, I switched into this. You made a comment recently. You reviewed.
I know it's coming.
You looked at Mage. You looked at Mage #1, and you're like, dude. And there's just that certain breed of old comics dude schlepping around the convention wearing that Mage shirt from Graffiti Designs. Right?
Yeah, that's ill. You guys are like our bigger brothers, man. You're the old heads who were telling us that Image Comics were super whack and that we needed to read the Elementals.
Yes. Well, yes, of course you do. It's the greatest comic of all time. It was way better than any of that Image stuff, but I'll tell you the truth, man.
You're not going to wear your mask, man?
You want me
to? We need to be in incognito mode.
We can do it.
It's the Red Room. You don't want to
dark
give up
mode.
Your proper alter ego. Yeah, there you go, man. I feel way more comfortable now.
Wait a minute. Dark mode engaged. We could go even creepier, dude. Let's get creepy. Hang on a second. Get creepy.
Oh, shit. You got the key green.
Yeah, we'll get creepy with this. All right. My lighting's not great today.
Now it's like a your cap is peeled. It's almost like Zippy.
I love it. I love it. It's nice and clean this way. Flat top. All right. I want to make an appearance as a Red Room villain, dude. I want to be a psychopath.
You stay looking that way, man. It's not going to be hard to do.
Sweet. All right. I was thinking Danny Dorco might be my Red Room name. Let's see what we got here. Ed.
Part of it, man.
Ed, I want to do something. I want to go right into. So we're going to talk about Red Room. I'm going to leave this Red Room graphic up here. Okay, so we're going to hype Red Room all show long. I've got a gentleman's bet with a guy named Steve Jeppy. You ever heard of Steve Jeppy?
He's a former mailman who is the benign ruler of comics distribution.
Correct. Yeah, he's a friend of the show. He's a friend of the show.
Well,
he's the king of comics.
Yeah, can he get us into that box, man, to go check out an Orioles game if I'm ever in Baltimore?
Oh, dude, he can do a lot more than that.
Yo, Steve, hook me up, man.
Well, here's what we're going to do. I've got a challenge because I know you've been pimping this book every episode, as you should. One of the things I love the most about your show is you guys are unabashedly about promoting yourselves and promoting your work. Like, you do your work and then you promote your work, and then you're not afraid to try and sell it and do a sell in each and every episode of Cartoonist Kayfabe. I really, really respect that because I don't see many other cartoonists really doing that until recently.
Yeah, we could agree that in order to become a quote unquote professional in the game, there's like a baseline average. There's a Mendoza line that exists to get to dip your foot into the door. If you do anything above what the average cat does, it can't hurt. You know what I'm saying? So I have no problems, man. I'm not going to do all this work and just imagine that some phantom audience is going to discover it. That's a big fiction, and that's a fiction that comes in certainly the fine arts game. When you read these stories of like a young Basquiat or somebody who, Warhol just happens upon him or something like that. When you dig into the true story, there's a lot of hard work that went into making these connections and kind of rising to the top. I have no problem sharing my work and trying to, build the audience, man. And when other cartoonists aren't going to do that, they might get a little bit salty when someone like myself, they would claim might be less talented or something, is going to have more opportunity, because I'm going to have no problem just kind of like gliding right by and making shit happen.
Well, I'll tell you the truth, man. Talent is as talent does, right? And so, like, you could be the greatest artist in the world and think you're the greatest cartoonist in the world, but if you're not putting out work and you're not putting out books and they're not selling, I don't know what you're doing.
Tree fall in the woods kind of gimmick.
Yeah, well, the most cartoons that I see of your ilk or your age, they want to get picked up by a publisher like Fantagraphics. Like, that would be a dream. Or Marvel, which you've been published by as well, right? But they really think that that's gonna like break them. Like, those publishers are gonna just like go out of their way, and it's like all about them, and they're really gonna promote their work. And I don't see much of that going on.
It's a small universe, man. Like there's like at Fantagraphics, it's a giant, it's a house full of people, but it's maybe a dozen people, and everybody's kind of stretched thin. Everybody's working their butts off to try to make a lot of stuff happen. And my philosophy in life is to just try to make stuff happen, like action items, man, not sit idle and just imagine that, people are going to handle my business for me. Even when it came to doing the X-Men Grand Design thing, I knew that they were not in the business of promoting singular creators. Like, what's the benefit for them? Like, really what Marvel and DC is simply like the cheapest research and development squad that Hollywood can buy, basically. You get all these artists and writers at a good rate, a rate that probably doesn't even meet the criterion for, the caterers at craft service on a set of a picture. And just like let them do their things, give them some guidelines so that they don't, quote unquote, abuse the property or something. And they design and create worlds for this company that they don't own, You know, like we sign these contracts, we know what we're getting into. There's histories of there's decades of history that we have to point to with the way that they treat us. So Howard Chaykin described it on our interview with him. He called it "We're taking the king's shilling willingly." So why would they promote a single person who's just a part of their stable?
Sorry.
We're here, right?
Yeah,
we're still streaming.
Yeah, yeah.
I had a publicist working for me to make sure that the word got out, because I just automatically assumed that this is just a weird satellite project for Marvel Comics, and they're not going to give it much shine within the company. So just an example of how I kind of roll when it comes to this game, man. Like just doing literally everything I can.
Well, okay. But you had to start, so nobody just gets handed a gig at Marvel. And like you said, almost every other indie guy that goes over to Marvel, they pair them with a different writer. So it's not a sole creation comic. That was sort of the difference. And I'm trying to remember, I'm sure maybe it has been done before, but maybe you could tell me, was Grand Design the first time when it was the same cartoonist doing the writing and the art?
Well, definitely not writing in the art, but I get what you're saying. You're talking about color, you talk about lettering as well, the whole kind of creative package.
Whole shebang. But usually it's definitely a separate writer. Like they go Marvel method. They'll take Mike Allred and they'll team him with a different writer, Peter Milligan or whatever. But
yeah, sure.
Did they try to do that? Did they want to offer that to you at first? Did you pitch the concept of Grand Design?
No, man. I would never work in a situation like that. Every time in my life that I've ever collaborated, the work disappears and nobody thinks about it ever again, man. And the times that I put stuff together myself, it seems to work out for me. So just to answer your question, though, there is one example in Marvel prior to Grand Design, and we're talking Marvel proper, not Epic. Because Rick Veitch did comics for Epic and he did the whole bit. Yeah. But it's Paul Kupperberg did an issue of Marvel team up with Howard the Duck, and he wrote, drew, penciled, inked, and lettered it. In fact, I have that thing pulled. Man, I got to talk to Jimmy. We got to do an episode on that at a certain point because it's one of those interesting novelties.
There might have been some stuff in that Strange Tales series that they did. Some of those are probably solo cartoons, but not a whole book. I don't count with a franchise, not what they gave you.
Yeah, I don't count that. That was just a little silly project.
Okay. Well, let's talk about collaborators, though, that you can't, maybe you can dismiss. Can you? You did a graphic novel with Harvey Pekar.
Yeah, that guy brought me into the game, and I did a lot of work with him. I would say maybe the first 400 pages of professional comics I made were thanks to Harvey. Just as a jobber, man. I just drew the stuff for the dude, and he was hot off the heels of his flick, American Splendor. He was never more popular. His popularity was at its maximum at that moment, and he just had so many opportunities come his way. So many opportunities that he didn't have enough artists to kind of fill those roles. And I was sending him comic strips, sent him a 5-pager, sent him a 4-pager. And it was like on the strength of those 9 pages that he got in touch and we connected. So I think of that guy. He's almost as important to me as my folks. He gave birth to my professional career. And it's one of those fun things, man, because here are the collaborations that I've had in my career. So it starts.
And I'm sorry, the graphic novel, though. I'm assuming you contributed to American Splendor issues that were still coming out, and then I believe was it Macedonia? Was that the?
Yeah, it was. There was Macedonia, and then there was another one called The Beats, where I did probably 3/4 of it. I did all the main stories: Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg. William S. Burroughs, and a couple 1-2 pagers of some of the more peripheral characters from the Beatnik generation. But we did a book called American Splendor, Our Movie Year, and I have 28 pages in that. Super early efforts, man. I think I was like 21, had no idea what I was doing. Harv tasked me with doing the big story in there, gave me something like 24 days to draw 28 pages. And I, had my first anxiety attack in my life where I'm like, man, I'm 21 and I think I'm having a heart attack. I'm about to pass out. What is happening to my body?
Yeah.
Because I was so excited, but also very scared. I went to that Kubert school, and one of the maxims of the Kubert school is like, you got to make your deadlines, man. Like the publisher has booked time at a print facility, and whether that book comes or, on time or not, the publisher still has to pay a bill of some kind. And if you put them in the red with nothing to offer, like, you could be blackballed. You could easily not get another opportunity. So I had to make sure that I got that thing done. And it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. But he dug it enough. I feel like it was like a little boot camp session, because after I turned it in, then he was like, well, how about doing 150 pages? So it went from 4 pages to 24 pages or 28 pages to 150 pages, and then did like a 120 page deal with the Beats. Did an issue of did one story in an issue of the Vertigo joint, probably the second season, the second miniseries that he did at Vertigo. And in between the Beats and in between Macedonia and the Beats, I did the first couple chapters of WYSIWYG, and just in between these big projects. So like after I did the Beats, I did another couple chapters of WYSIWYG. Got hooked up with animation company, man. The people that were doing the Tony Millionaire, was it a Drinky Crow show?
He did a Drinky Crow, yeah.
Yeah,
I hooked up, and a Mackey's.
Yeah, hooked up with those guys and did some work in animation for like 14 months. And that was the seed money to complete WYSIWYG and to do the first volume of Hip Hop Family Tree. I was able to live on that for a couple of years.
Okay, well, I want to take you somewhere for a second, Ed. I want to take you.
Do we have to leave the Red Room, though?
Well, for just a minute. But we're going to step in somewhere even cooler, if you could imagine that. We're going to step inside, I don't know, you ever heard of a little thing we like to call the $1 Million Comics Cam?
Okay.
So here we are in the $1 Million Comics Cam. Oh, wait a minute. Let me see if I can shrink it down here. And we could take a look at the books that you're talking about in real time.
Oh, dude, you're running a 2-camera setup. We're really going to have to solicit you for consultation on our AV setups, man.
I got your back, pal.
Jimmy and I have no idea what the heck we're doing with this stuff. We're just kind of trial by fire.
Okay, well, let's definitely talk after this, because I got a lot more tricks up my sleeve.
Look at those M papers, man. Those M papers are fly as hell. They still stand up.
It's a fantastic book. Now, so okay, here's my thing. I was only ever exposed to your name and your book by your American Splendor work.
Mm-hmm.
And that Our Movie Year book,
yeah,
is probably the best. I'm going to venture to say it's the best-selling American Splendor book of all time, or close to it.
Yeah, I would have no idea.
Just because it had the movie tie-in, it broke after the movie, it was everywhere, and I sold a shitload of them.
Oh, cool.
So, but I'll be honest, it was your early work and stuff. So I saw it and I was like, okay, this guy's good. He's good enough to work with Picard. He's got storytelling chops galore. And then I was like, okay. And then it wasn't until I started. Well, I mean, you're not going to be the bar is automatically like, if you're good enough to work with Picard, there's people that will diss some of the Picard artists. And you could say it's not, they're not all Robert Crumb, right? But
I gained a lot of empathy. Like the people that get dissed, I sort of see how it worked from the inside, man. Because when I did that 4-pager for him, it was I had all the time in the world, but then it was like you got to do this 24-pager, 28 days, or 28 pages, 24 days. I forget which, and there was no time, man. So it's like if you want to make the deadline, you're gonna have to cut these corners. So I even got in touch with him because I was like, man, some of these dudes are corny. And then when I did my pages, I'm like, oh man, I'm one of the corny dudes. Oh no.
So but you get to work with a guy like Picard who's telling stories that aren't getting told anywhere else, right? In any other way. And that alone is just going to make you a better cartoonist. I think.
It was great.
It
was great. Yeah, for sure.
All right. But then I had this book in my store on the shelf and I didn't read it. I'm embarrassed because there's never been a comic book more written like for me.
Yeah, you're a coder, right?
Dude, I've been into Unix and networking and systems administration and software development.
Just for the people at home, he's talking about UNIX, not EUNUCHS or however you spell that word.
I'm into those too. Don't get me wrong.
In the red room.
No. And okay, but then I read this thing, and you know what really turned me off, I think, was the name for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, the name, I was like, it didn't strike me as like this guy. This guy must not really know anything about computers or what he's talking about. I guess that was just my first blush. And then I read this thing, and I'm like, oh, he's done his homework, man, because you took what's obviously a pastiche of the real history of Kevin Mitnick and Captain Crunch and all those dudes, the 2600 crew and all those people, and just turned it into something fun and relatable. And showed what I always wanted to see, what no one has done in hacking culture, in any hacker movies. Okay, it's always like, oh, we got to get through the firewall. Got it. Nailed it. You know, like, what are you talking about? These guys picked locks and wore outfits and like were like brilliant manipulators, right? Social manipulators.
Call it social engineering.
Yeah. Brilliant. And then to bring in guys like this crew, right? To bring in, I don't know if you could see, to bring in Steve and Steve, okay? And to really lay them bare as kind of what they were, as the hypesters that they were, the hypesters, the hucksters. It's almost like I feel how you felt, you sort of treated Rick Rubin a little bit, maybe in Hip Hop Family Tree, maybe how you might feel about Stan Lee. Tell me what you think about Steve and Steve and these guys.
Well, this scenario, so this is Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, the creators of Apple Computer. And while they were young, they actually did, like, the proper job that they had that was taxable was, for a small time, they were Alice in Wonderland characters at like a local mall. So you would take your kids there and I guess, have some kind of setup where you're taking photos with, the Mad Hatter and the White Rabbit and some girl is playing, Alice or whatever. So I just took that piece. And they were also very early hackers. There was a thing called the black box. You mentioned 2600. The 2600 hertz tone was what you could play into a phone in order to basically co-opt the payphone and get free long distance phone calls. So it was Steve Wozniak that figured out a way to use the crystals that are used for ham radios, put that on a circuit board, and through some engineering could emit that exact 2600 tone in a very clean way. Because the other way to do it earlier, and you mentioned it, there was a hacker named Captain Crunch. And the reason why he had that moniker was because there was a little toy whistle in a Captain Crunch box that you could blow into the phone receiver. It would emit that 2600 hertz tone, and the dude can get free long distance calls with that little toy. So that's what that stuff is there.
Can you imagine how cool that must have felt? Can you imagine how that would have felt to do?
Well, when I was like a little dude in the 80s, that was the red box era. And I knew people that had red boxes. Like, I had some friends who had bigger brothers and junk, man. And what the red box would do is it would same basic deal, but it could play the noises of like the basically the kerchunk of a quarter being
Yeah.
entered into a payphone, and I was there, man. Like we used that stuff just for the
Mhm.
heck of it, just to see if we could, man.
I remember doing similar things. Like there was a trick we could do at a phone at our school where payphone, you could put a paper clip into the receiver and touch it to ground on the phone, and it would give you a free credit on the phone. And we would
Yeah, that's sick. That's super awesome, man.
awesome, right? It feels like a superpower when you're a kid and you can do that kind of stuff. You're sticking it to the man too, and really like the beauty of this book was that you didn't just try to document reality. You took it to sort of a surreal, hyped up level, and I really feel like that's what helped make this succeed. Tell me how this book came to be, and like what was your what brought you to make this book, because it's long, dude. This is a lot of cartooning. This is your epic work, and friend of the show and guest Peter Bagg called it a masterpiece on this show.
Oh, that's pretty cool. You know, Pete Bagg is the dude who hooked me up with the animation guys to do all the stuff that I did. So
that looks like his font.
It does. You're right. Yeah, you're right. There's a character in that comic that is kind of designed to be like Fuddy Duddy Buddy Bradley. It's like one of the bullies that kind of is messing with our guy Kevin. So basically, the genesis for the project is I knew a kid in real life named Kevin who was a hacker. You know, he's no longer with us, but my character's name is sort of based off of his. And
okay.
He got me interested in a lot of stuff, man. Like this dude knew how to make thermite, and he was insane with the stuff that he pulled off. And he had whatever kind of, was kind of autistic or something. So he didn't have the fear center that I did, man. And he would pull some crazy trips that would just make me so freaked out. Anyhow, he's the one who got me interested in the culture. And while I was working on stuff with Harvey Pekar, this is before podcasting, man. This is before like streaming video in any real way.
Totally.
So I exhausted all of my DVD audio commentary tracks, all of my CDs, was just looking for anything that wasn't the stuff that I listened to 1,000 times, And I found the 2600 magazine's website, and they had an archive like way before this kind of thing was possible. In fact, I think they even had to use a real player to be able to stream these audio files, man. But it was essentially an archive of 25 years of their radio show every Wednesday, WBAI in the middle of money-making Manhattan.
Oh.
It's one of the like 6 or 7 Pacifica radio stations, and they're very unique compared to NPR because they're completely community funded, no underwriting from Chevrolet or any of that stuff. It's all community based. And that radio station in particular is real interesting because that's the one where George Carlin did his 7 Dirty Words and kind of brought about like the obscenity stuff. And it's also the channel where like the 2600 show Off the Hook was either on before or after the comic book show that had Jack Kirby on as a guest when they kind of bamboozled him and got Stan Lee to call in, and it was like super uncomfortable.
Oh man,
like you could find.
Oh man, I gotta find that.
Yeah. Anyhow, man, I listened to that entire 25-year archive while working on Macedonia, and I, in a lot of ways, just identified with the hacker mentality because it was the host of the publisher of 2600 magazine, who was the host of the show. He had that privileged position to like be there at the forefront of a lot of crazy stuff that was happening, man. And there would be people who would come in as guests who would be fugitives the next day. And there were more than one, scenario where even co-hosts of the show ended up in prison and would have to like call collect in order to like be hosts again, like while they're doing their bid, like they would co-host the show while in prison, and you would hear that, please deposit $2 more kind of operator would come through, or like the little beep saying that the thing was being recorded. So I identified a lot with the spirit of the hackers in relation to the cartoonist, because there's an intense curiosity that I felt like I shared with a lot of these dudes. And I mean, there's a million things. Like, we just split our energy in different ways, you know? Like, they're sort of banging on things to see how they work and function and what they could get out of it. And in a lot of ways, man, the comic book page is kind of like hacking in some ways. It's manipulating time. It's setting images up right next to one another to trick the reader into conveying something, or you're selling them on an idea of like what happens between the gutters. Like, there's like a lot of abstract ways to compare and contrast. And
Totally.
when this book came out, like, I hooked up with so many of those dudes, and all of my kind of theories were sort of true, you know. Like, I got along with these guys super well, you know, made friends for life with a lot of these dudes, like even from like the 2600 crew, you know, like we traveled the circuit, did hacker conventions together and stuff.
Okay. And somehow you ended up doing another miracle move, like I didn't see anybody else do, serializing this on Boing Boing. How did that happen?
Yeah, I never serialized WYSIWYG on Boing Boing, but what was very cool was when I was putting this together, I had an idea for an audience in mind. Like, at that time, like, podcasting and stuff was kind of starting to happen as WYSIWYG was as pages were generating. You know, different things were happening technologically. We all started to get high-speed internet to make this kind of thing possible. Hosting services started to exist. So, like, you remember that time before you could host stuff elsewhere. It was literally, and there's nothing like this in economics that's comparable. There was a time on the internet where your popularity could actually make you super broke.
True. Yeah, right.
Because of bandwidth reasons, right? If Howard Stern mentioned your website and sent 100,000 people to your website, you might get a $10,000 bill.
Sure. Or that website might just come crashing to the ground, like they used to call the slash dot effect.
Right. Yeah. You get slash dotted. Totally. Yeah. So anyhow, like, I had an audience in mind for this, man. And Boing Boing was and kind of is one of my favorite resources for news in a lot of ways, man. And specifically Cory Doctorow and Mark Frauenfelder were the dudes that I had in mind. You know, Frauenfelder was editor-in-chief of Wired magazine when it was like the raddest. Yeah. And even there were guys at Wired magazine at the time, like Stephen Levy, who I had in mind as like a potential audience for this comic. So when I was making it, I had these guys in mind and just sent them the comics. There were reviews on Boing Boing and in Wired magazine for these little self-published comics. It didn't even have an ISBN number. You know what I'm saying? So what would happen is I would wake up the next day and have thousands of dollars in my, like, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars, like, in my PayPal. And this would have been around like 2008 when all that economic nonsense was happening. Like, I was already broke as hell. So it's like, I didn't feel any of that. But when I started having that sort of stuff happen, I'm like, what's the big deal? You know, like, I'm doing all right. Things seem fine to me.
Right.
But anyhow, so that's how I established the initial relationship with Boing Boing.
Okay, that makes total sense. And then Hip Hop Family Tree was serious. It makes sense that they would have read this, looked at this, and been like, "Oh, of course, this guy."
Yeah, I mean, it spoke the same sort of language as the tech blogs and things, man. At that time, it's really spread out a lot now, and people are doing a lot of things everywhere. But at that exact moment, a lot of this kind of niche kind of technology subculture was very San Francisco centric.
And
can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'd keep going. You were going. I lost my audio for a second. Sorry. Keep going.
Word. So anyhow, a lot of this San Francisco based technology. Where was I going? So as podcasts, all that stuff started to spring up. A lot of it was San Fran based, man. So like when Twitter was new, the top dudes on Twitter, when you can only have 5,000 followers, it was Kevin Rose, who had dig.com, and it was Leo Laporte, the tech guy on KFI. These were just tech guys, nerds, and they were the top person. It wasn't until Britney Spears came, and then she was like the first major popular celebrity to have a Twitter account, and then they just kind of opened the floodgates after that. This comic was able to spread around in that universe a lot. You know, Steve Wozniak had a copy, and it just benefited from word of mouth through basically that city.
You know, and I lived in San Francisco during the .com boom. I worked for one of the first web development companies of all time. Through all of this, and I was an avid Boing Boing reader and everything else, 2600 reader. And it all skipped me by. And then I finally got to it because I came back to you when Cartoonist Kayfabe helped inspire me to like say, dude, these guys are working hard and promoting not just comics, but promoting this work ethic that you're talking about. Get out and do it. And dude, that did it for me. And that's what pushed me to say, like, if I'm going to do this, I got to just start making videos and go from there. So it's really very inspiring.
Yeah, that's cool to hear, man. Thanks a lot. And even when we started the channel, it was like we had no idea, man. We didn't know what the heck we were doing, and I could make a strong argument that we barely know what the heck we're doing at this very moment. But it's a fun excuse to hang out with my homeboy, take a look at comics that we feel like looking at, talking some stuff, and certainly, you know, nobody foresaw any kind of pandemic situation, man. So it's been this really great kind of oasis in the middle of the week where you know we're dealing with our stuff. We're kind of like locked down, and you know have this like kind of look forward to, hang out with the homie, talk some shit, and then you know debrief, man. Like go our separate ways, go draw comics for 6 days, come back, wash, rinse, repeat, do it all over again.
Well, so speaking of inspiration too, as we were like, dude, so you were reading a lot of Dan Klaus or what? And Yummy Fur and what? Like that's when I look at these books, I see not copying, but I see like a definite influence.
Yeah, sure, all that stuff. It's the same thing as like most indie cartoonists. Like we, from my peer group, it's like you start off like Speculator Boom, McFarlane, Liefeld, Lee kind of reader, and when you start to actually really want to read a comic and have something to think about and consider, you have to graduate from that system, you know, and I certainly...
You don't have to, Ed. Not everybody does.
Yeah, that's goddamn right. What's up, listeners? What's up, YouTubers? Anyhow, yeah, I mean, I needed more stuff to chew on and consider, and just like needed different kinds of outlets that said different things. And, you know, found indies pretty early. Like Klaus was a super early find for me through Cracked Magazine with the Ugly Family. And there was an issue of, it's called Ninja number 4 from like, I don't know, Eternity Comics or one of those weird ones, where the back cover was an ad for Ugly Family. And it's like, you know, by Stosh Gillespie and Il O'Brien. And it wasn't until I was in art school where somebody's like taking a look at these 8-ball comics I had, and they were like, they made the connection, like that looks like Ugly Family artwork, and I'm like, but it can't be because it was drawn by Stosh Gillespie. And then you find out that was Klaus.
Because I totally see it, and I just look at it, and I'm not like, I don't know, I just feel it because I'm so familiar with their artwork. I just get a feel from it, I can't point to anything specific to say he's swiping, but it's like clearly you were learning lessons from those guys, and who's better to learn a lesson from?
I mean, that's how I am. I'm just an eternal student of the form. Like it's always going to be that way. You know, every comic that I make is just an exercise. I do feel really lucky, very fortunate that people will support it and read these experiments of mine. But you know, I'm just trying stuff.
Dude, this is brutal. I love this part. It just like,
yeah, that's based
visceral.
That's based on my dude Bernie S is his hacker name, and he was in prison for a year, and he was supposed to be there for longer, but he was able to get a kind of medical furlough because he just got his fucking ass beat hard and broke his jaw, like destroyed his arm,
Oh my
uh,
god.
all like super crazy scarred up face and stuff, man. And that's sort of inspired by the brutality that he felt, man, because
For like
he got
making
jacked
free
up.
phone calls, for making phone calls or something, or what?
Yeah. For
Credit
buying
card numbers, maybe.
for buying crystals, the crystals that go into the ham radios, because these specific ones were able to be used for something that I can't quite remember,
Uh-huh.
and wouldn't even say
All right.
if I could remember.
I don't want to laugh at that, but Jesus Christ, get your fucking arm and get beat down over ham radio crystals. Come on.
Yeah, it was a crazy time. It was that time where that Bernie and his crew, like his whole peer group, they're coming up in the 80s when you're able to get the acoustic coupler, go on to like 300 baud modem, and actually surf phone numbers and
Yeah.
bang on doors, go war dialing, bang
Yep.
on phone numbers, see if it leads anywhere. And a kid in like the early 80s, it was trivial to be able to jump into a NASA computer, and it was like funny, and even when
Right.
it would go down, like the feds would show up and there's no laws on the books, and they would kind of scare the heck out of you and tell your mom to punish you or something like that, until they got some precedent, until some laws got put on the books, and then these guys that were doing the same stuff they were always doing, now it's federal charges.
And really what they were doing was exposing massive security holes and
Yeah.
honestly doing a service to the phone company, to anybody involved in security and internet security.
Yeah, we had
So-
to learn all those lessons the hard way, like you try as you may to secure your setup, man. There will always be, a 14-year-old that has summer vacation from high school or middle school, and they have more time on their hands than you do at your 9 to 5, IT gig. So they're going to find a way.
So who's optioned this thing, Ed? Is this optioned for a movie or any kind of adaptations?
Yeah, it always is, man. Like whenever it was definitely
Nice spot varnish, by the way. Love the
Oh
spot
yeah, the
varnish.
design on that is fresh, man. The design on that
Sick.
is super fresh. It was like, it was considered. It sort of went further back when Scott Pilgrim came out, and I think Scott Pilgrim was the canary in the coal mine, and that canary passed. If you remember, they did a big push. And
That's a cult film, though, dude. That's gonna be a cult film for a long time.
yeah, of course. But what's the definition of a cult film? It doesn't do its thing when all the guys who spent all the money to make the thing
That's it.
aren't seeing that their profits are in the black yet. So, but it's all this stuff is always bouncing around.
All right, so that led into, I'm going to say, the association with this stuff led to an association with Boing Boing. And did you start out serializing it? I'm sorry, I don't have all the history on this. I had some interesting personal things happen in the last week when I normally would have been researching, so I didn't have time to do what I usually would do.
Yeah, for sure, man. You look well, by the way.
Thank you.
So what happened was I connected with Boing Boing. They knew the comics, and there was a kind of another companion kind of site called Engadget, if you remember that one.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Engadget was far more tech focused, and they were soliciting me to do these kind of like Far Side type one panel cartoons that were tech related, and it was very topical, timely, and frankly super boring. I considered Engadget at the time to be like a rival to Boing Boing in some ways. I don't know if Boing Boing ever considered them to be. I think they would just do their own thing. But I took those strips and just showed them to the Boing Boing guys and was like, can I do comics for you? Like, this Engadget stuff is real weak. And it took a day, like the next day, get an email like, how about every Tuesday or something? We could pay this much. How about every Tuesday? So for 3 months, it was about 12 weeks of floundering around because I, asked for the opportunity, but I had nothing in mind. Like Boing Boing was extremely popular at that moment too. They were always serving stuff that went viral, and I was just floundering, like doing these little strips that kind of went nowhere until I did the first Hip Hop Family Tree strip that was going to be very semi-regular. Like I wasn't going to do it each week, but it was immediately viral, like from the start. And it just continued to gain momentum. It just continued to gain momentum. And it was thanks to a lot of rappers and DJs and kind of impresarios of hip hop culture that just kept promoting it. They just kept putting it out there and retweeting it and all of that sort of stuff. So that's kind of how things went.
Yeah. I mean, so many of those guys, I don't know, at least in the era of hip hop that I enjoyed the most, kind of the late 90s. Such a comic book connection, like to the Wu-Tang and everything else, right? I think Method Man is doing a Marvel podcast now, if you can believe that one.
That's on brand. That makes sense.
You should get on that thing, dude. They'd have you on. That'd be a perfect way to expose your new stuff.
Yeah, why not? I mean, I'm here. If they reach out, I'll do it. But other than that, I got plenty on my plate. I'll just hang out, make my comics, do my YouTube.
I'm just gonna say Wu-Tang, they like comics and they like torture, right? So
yeah. I could do a comic version of sewing somebody up and feeding them
Dude, bang them shits on a dresser, man. I love this for, I don't know, the feel. It's obvious you wanted a retro looking feel to it. You've got a Marvel Treasury thing going on here.
Yeah, the idea was to make it feel like it was ripped from that time period.
And dude, it feels that way. Right down to like, I don't know, like faux aging on the paper, right? I'm assuming this was white paper and this is like an effect, or is this paper stock that it's actually on is this sort of sepia?
Yeah, no. It's white paper.
Yeah.
But it's fuzzy, like it's got a lot of wood grain, a lot of pulp texture.
Yeah, it does.
But it's so hard to find. They just don't make shitty paper anymore. They just don't make paper that turns yellow any longer. I remember Jimmy was making a zine one time, and he was looking for like a really, good grade newsprint or something, and he was relegated to using something like U-Haul packing paper. And he was like, even this is archival. So, that's the world we live in now.
Well, that's not a bad thing necessarily, I think. But it's definitely like, for those who are into the nostalgia, the smell, dude. You know what I mean? That acid smell when you go to a comic book store.
Yeah, it's fun. That was always one of the gratifying things when people come up to me at a festival or something, and it's a very tactile thing. So like they're rubbing their hand over the paper, and they'll say stuff like, the smell of it or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it's just synesthesia. I think it's just, you feel this kind of old, gritty paper. You see this kind of old technique, and your brain is telling you to smell something because it's very new.
Dude, I smell something right now. It might be my victims in back here. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
something smelling. I'm going to say though, this book, I heard some criticism that are like, well, man, I could go to Wikipedia too and do comics about the history of blah, 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 blah. And I go, well, then do it, right? Like go do it. Go do 300 pages of super well cartooned, well thought out stuff that condenses decades of history into like fun, clean, readable storytelling. Go ahead and do it.
Yeah, sure. I'll accept any criticism. I'm still gonna.
So what kind of research did you do? I mean, what, like beyond like, I mean, not that you have to like, I don't know, be on stage spitting rhymes, but like how, what extent did you do research? Like, was it all books?
A lot of
Music.
books, a lot of extrapolation from interviews. Certainly, that first book is all found sources, man. So it's like read every single book you could find. And a part of my whole kind of career is about, and this is WYSIWYG, this is Hip Hop Family Tree, this is X-Men, this is Red Room. Is the comic is an extension of my procrastination. So I want to learn a lot about computer hacking and that whole culture. I'm going to read every book on the subject. I'm going to find, all sorts of magazines. I'm going to listen to whatever 25 years times, 50 weeks per year times 1 hour. That's the thousands of hours of that radio show I listened to in order to make WYSIWYG. So, I just indulge, man. Read every issue of The Source. Read every issue of Word Up magazine. You could find
Here's a guy whose
PDFs.
legacy. Here's a guy whose legacy has changed a little bit in recent years, huh?
Yeah, that's for sure, man. And people got some of that stuff tattooed on their body, man. So I need to get some cover up or something.
Yeah, seriously. Okay, so this is the thing. I mean, this is the thing you are most well known for, right? You want to talk? Can you? I like to. I don't know. I don't want to put people on the spot, but tell me some numbers, man. Like, how many of these things are out there? Like, how big of a hit is Hip Hop Family Tree?
You know what, man? Like the way you have to play these kind of things, man.
Yeah.
If people like you want people to just think you're broke, man. So it's whatever number you think.
I gotcha. Okay.
Because
dude, I'm seeing this a lot of places that you don't see it. Like, I don't know. Totally. I don't see this at my local comic book store, but I do see it at every single one of my local bookstores.
Yeah, like looking at the cover of that first volume, and you could look in the indicia and let me know, man. But it's at least a third printing, probably a fourth printing of volume 1 there.
Okay, let me see what I got here.
Because the first 2 printings were a different cover, and then I think we did one that didn't have that New York Times piece on it. So that's either third or fourth.
This one is I can't tell. Oh, 7th. 7th. We like.
I want to dedicate that to everybody out there listening, man, who's getting their Twitter fingers ready.
Lucky 7. Okay.
And it hasn't ended there, by the way. You must have had that for a while.
Not that long, dude. Yeah, but not that long. But it's probably been, at the shop. No, wait a minute. Let me think. At the shop, they had volumes 2 and 3, and I had to special order this. So this was probably 2019.
Well, I should actually let people know that we did hit the print button to make more reprints happen, and including the box sets, man, because those have been out of print for a while. I saw that they were going for like 300 on eBay, so those are going to be coming back.
Awesome. All right. Well, so I'm going to step out of the $1 Million Comics Cam because I don't have any more paper comics from you, Ed. Let's talk about Red Room.
Such an impressive background. It's very inspiring.
Thank you. Let's see. Wait a minute. I can even adjust the lighting. Let me see. Oh, wait a minute. Let me turn up the red. Oh, there we go. Much better. Okay. So tell me, how did Red Room... So, I know a little bit. I know because I watch Cartoons Kayfabe, and you talk about it once in a while. You mentioned this book. And one of the things that impressed me was, you're like, fuck, dude, I'm sick of the soft shit that is coming out. I want some hardcore comics like we used to get in the 80s and 90s. So tell me about the inspiration for Red Room.
Yeah, I mean, I just make whatever the heck I want to read. You know what I'm saying? So I grew up on the Faust stuff. I like The Crow. I like, Troy Nixie's early efforts. Name them, man. We just recently recorded a video about Evil Ernie. And there were those Eternity comics that had that energy. So it's a kind of artistic tradition that kind of disappeared. It had its little day in the sun, but it was super inspiring to me. And it is funny to me, just kind of how, when we got into this, it was like the McFarlane, Lee Liefeld stuff. It was this speculator boom that was almost like Carney. I was a little kid, and there were adults who were very happy to divest me of my paper route money and my allowance and just take my loot and sell me magic beans.
Oh yeah.
And it's like very scummy 1990s situation, right? So it's like that's where I cut my puppy teeth, man, and where I grow up. And then it starts to get these different levels of critical awareness and acceptance. And I obviously I like a lot of that stuff as well. I like most of it. But then when things start getting super bourgeois, I feel like, why not just make a comic that's a little bit of a correction, a little market correction or something. Like, let's take stuff back to the grittiness that it was. And I'll be honest, it's real fun to have this be a Fantagraphics book because Uncle Gary and Uncle Eric, and rest in peace, Uncle Kim, they really were screaming from the mountaintops for years and years, man, when comics were at a really low point in those late 70s, man. The comics could be more than just this pulp fare, and you could do more things, and they put their money where their mouths were and start publishing things like Love and Rockets and 8 Ball and Hate and all kinds of really rad stuff, and they were at the forefront of where comics grew to be. In fact, the oral history of the Fantagraphics, that big book, is called what? We Told You So? Comics as Art, right? That's rad. So I do like that this is a pulpy, in the best sense of the word, a pulpy, gritty comic, and it's like coming out like from Fantagraphics, like the people who were on the forefront of changing the game, so that comics could have more artistic acceptance and break down other doors.
Other thing is, I know them. I've had Gary on the show and Eric Reynolds on the show, and I know they're free speech absolutists, right? Like, there's nothing you can't say in this comic that you want. Nothing. Because if they're going to continue to publish the complete works of Robert Crumb, for instance, in an age where Dr. Seuss is getting backlash, then you can be sure they're going to stand behind your creative vision.
Oh, no doubt. And that was a big consideration. You know what I'm saying, man? Like, I know that they're going to have my back. I'm not going to have to worry about any of that kind of stuff with Eric and Gary. And you are right. They are 100% kind of absolutists about free speech, because they will publish people who roast Crumb as well. So it's like they completely disagree with that person's stance, but that person makes really good comics. That person is a great cartoonist. So if you want a world with really good comics, like, you got to have other points of view that you might not exactly agree with. And I just talked with Gary a little bit yesterday, and he's like, Ed, I have no idea where the heck you're going with this thing, man, but I support it.
Well, I do too. I mean, there was maybe jokingly banned in 3 countries, or is that true? Or what's the...
Yeah, I was, they sort of said that I should keep mum on that part as well, man. The lawyers are handling that stuff. Might not be banned forever.
Okay.
Might be banned in even more countries every issue. You just never know.
You never know. So in other words, you better pre-order those copies now while you can still get them.
I suggest it, and hope that your country isn't on that banned list.
And what do you think if they had to order it? What could they maybe, maybe that blinking number down there, maybe that thing down there, they could use that number and talk to their comic shop and order it, right?
The way that I like to describe things, because I try to think of like the outside world approach to how they sell things. And Steve Jobs isn't telling you about like the day that, Apple computers are going to be hitting the Best Buy. He just says, go talk to your shop, like, go get a comic. So what you do is you go to your comic shop, you ask for Red Room, and they're going to put that order in for you. The shop is going to know what to do. When you start to get kludgy like this with these numbers, you're asking a lot of people.
Well,
from people
I
like
know,
that.
but I mean, I've been a comic shop owner. I own a shop. I worked in the shop, and I've been an owner for a long time. Not all shops are at that same level. Like
Yeah.
the guys that are going to carry Red Room or Red Room's even on their radar, don't even worry. Just go in there and say, "Hey, Ed Pisco Red Room, you're going to get it." But if you're a shop that just does not carry even like, they won't even carry Valiant comics because that's too indie.
Sure,
them.
yeah.
Then it is worth writing down this number. I'm telling you, this is why I'm making a bet with Steve Jeppy, and I'm going to try to see if Eric Reynolds will cough up some pre-order numbers, and we can compare them to some Diamond numbers and see which channel has more juice in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
really interested in that.
Yeah. I mean, Diamond's been around quite a long time, man. They have their machine.
I want to share something else. So let's take a look at some Red Room stuff.
I just keep staring at your half a head. It's very inspiring for Red Room purposes.
Okay. I don't mind if you cop this look. This is a scary looking dude, and I'm a Bitcoin early adopter. So
yeah, that's sick, man. Like whenever I discovered them, they were $60.
Okay. Then you're even earlier than me, dude. I bought at 90.
Yeah, that's ill, man. And basically, like I know a bunch of people who are friends, total degenerates, and they the reason you had Bitcoin was to like use it on the Silk Road. That was like the only place that could be exchanged. So when the Silk Road goes away, they just aren't even thinking about it anymore. But they have this wallet, and then you start to hear things on Planet Money or just in pop culture. I don't know, like a trending topic or something like this. And they look in their wallet that they didn't look in for years, and are like, "How do I have $600,000 right now? Like, what's the scam here?"
Yeah, that's what happened to me. Not that much. I bought 10. I had 10, and
it's nice, man.
I sold most of them. I still got a couple.
Yeah, that's baller.
Okay, but dude, I bought them when when the economy crashed. And it's like $90, and I go, I'm a gambler by nature. I love poker, so I'm like, I'd pay $1,000 to like get a chance to play in the World Series of Poker, right? And that's a huge long shot. So let me drop $900 on some Bitcoin and see what happens. Especially because I didn't understand it at all. It took me, and I'm a computer guy, and it took me a long time to understand what was going on there. And when I finally did, I'm like, oh, it's going to take a while for the normies to catch up to this. So now is the time. Get in now. And it took a few years, but it worked.
Yeah, like as a kid who came up like with the sort of World Wide Web becoming prominent, it was the same thing that I remember experiencing when like Amazon and .coms really came into effect, where it's like, are you really going to trust your credit card number like in this website, right? So it's like that was the same spirit that was around Bitcoin at that moment, man, where it's like this fringe weird thing, and it still has fringe elements. It's like people are just buying and selling, but nobody's like really exploring, the blockchain and all that stuff. It just kind of
there's a little bit of that stuff starting to happen now. Like especially, well, wait a minute, you just queued us up, NFTs, right?
Yeah, right.
Are you into that scene? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know anything about it, man, but go do your thing. Like comics is my thing. I'm not into speculation or any stuff like that, man, but make your money. Everybody is entitled to give it a shot.
Well, I mean, where I think it gets interesting for comics particularly is for artists that work purely digitally. Right. And the ability to sell originals now and to have a one of a kind digital original. That's the only thing where I think it's interesting to me and shows some potential and benefits. But otherwise, I think it's Pogs and Pokemon cards and all that stuff all over again.
Yeah, this conversation. This is one of these conversations that could be played back in a couple of years, and we could seem like real rubes or great prognosticators. Man, that's sort of one of the fun things about how the internet works.
I wish I had brought up more of these pages earlier, but I want you to tell me, so just give us the high level, give us the elevator pitch on Red Room.
One of the things I say on the channel, man, it's murder on the dark web for fun and profit. And just in my exploration, like I mentioned Silk Road before, right? And that was like like an Amazon for black market goods that existed in the aughts and the early teens on the dark web. And when news of that started to come into prominence, I would read everything that I could find about this dark web and all that sort of thing, man. And the term red room is something that you will see crop up. And the idea is that there's like a weird, disgusting subculture of, it's almost, in my mind, the only people that could participate would be kind of like 1%ers who, you know, for the man or woman who has everything, like why not have dominion on somebody's soul or some shit? So it's like cam girl websites, but the murder version. So pledge your tip money, ask for a request to be processed, man, and the person on the cam has somebody with them, and they'll either do it or won't do it. And this sort of idea, yeah, look at this great this backdrop, man. That little screaming baby face too, that really adds to it. Anyhow,
how many like how real is this phenomenon? Is this like urban myth?
Yeah, that's all. It's impossible because, you know, you work in tech, so like you can't. It's impossible right now, and you know, maybe this can be played back at a future date, and we look quaint, but you cannot stream video without giving up your location. Can't do it. Wait, if you use Tor, onion routing, all that, it just doesn't work. Like it always has to talk back to your home computer, your home IP address. So what I'm laying out is just an urban myth that has a major impediment that will just keep it fictional until, you know, I'm going to just knock on wood real quick because I definitely don't want this to ever exist. And frankly, like a big part of the comic is me just creating this problem for myself and just thinking about who would participate in such a thing because it's so foreign to me, you know, it's so weird. But there's a lot of people on this planet, you know, and you could jump in the skin of some weirdos and try to reverse engineer the mindset of somebody who would participate in this kind of thing because there is precedent for this stuff. I was reading Stephen King's Dance Macabre, and he was talking about snuff films from South America.
Yes.
And I'm like, what? What? You mean that shit was real? And it's like, you know, it's cartel stuff, and it's made to almost show their own people within the cartel as well as the competition. So it's like, all right, you stay in line or else this can happen to you. And that's said to everybody involved, right? And you know, like that stuff exists. Terrorist organizations have adopted those philosophies.
So what I was gonna say, did sometimes they make this kind of thing like realistic, where my people come from, right? Like they get pretty brutal over there, and they'll put out these videos that now have become lavishly produced. You know, it's not just a shaky camcorder in a cave. It's like we got some dudes, we got multi-cameras, we got editing,
music, and it looks like feature film and stuff. It's super brutal, man. So I'm trying to keep things light, even though it's harrowing subject matter, and just using hyperbole in terms of the visuals, just because that's the Outlaw Comics part of it. You know, that's the Tim Vigil part of it. That's the crazy, you know, it's almost like pushing Kirby to the limit in some way because it's dynamic, but also goes to a place where Kirby would never go, goes to a place where the superhero dudes would never go.
That's what I wanted to ask you about, because it seems like I get a feel from it. Every pose, like a cop standing there just like talking, there's just like a flex to it, right? There's everything is sort of pumped up a little bit and in a cartoonish way. Everything, even like a hand opening a door and things like that. I look at other things you've drawn and I go, he's doing something different here that gives it I want to say Mad Magazine, you know, Jack Davis, like there's a humor behind it in the drawing itself. You want to talk about the artistic influences? That
part is like just natural. It's just it's probably, you know, I'm telling, like the one major flaw of putting this together is that is that it, it's hard for me to draw people killing people. Like
Yeah.
it's not it's crazy to put my mind in that place, you know. And I started working on this comic before like lockdown or anything like that. So at a certain point last year, it's like I wanted to do anything but think of such scary bad stuff. You know what I'm saying, man? So
Absolutely.
it's almost like my own kind of self-preservation tactic to just kind of not take it so seriously in a way, man, because it could just be sheer brutality and I mean, I could take it to a super dark place.
Dude, that's what I mean. Yeah,
and
it could be off-putting.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually don't mind that, you know, like that's fine. But it's just I'm still trying to tell like a story that's fun to me. Like I am making a comic that I would read, you know, and it doesn't really exist right now. And it's a comic that my friends would read and that my friends like. Whenever I finish a comic, I put together a little quick and dirty PDF, send it their way, and you know, I don't have yes man kind of friends. Like I have people who can steer me in a direction and will tell me if I'm off my rocker or something like that. And you know, the feedback has been great.
It's awesome. What I love about it, I haven't read it yet, but what I love in concept about it is that is it going to be monthly or bi-monthly? I'm assuming bi-monthly, right?
No, it's going to be monthly. Like I worked ahead a lot. Yeah, I worked ahead a lot. You know, 2020 was going to be a production year for me anyhow. I had no plans on putting anything fresh out. Very little changed for my day to day last year with the lockdown and the pandemic and stuff. Not like anything has changed for us anyhow, but you know what I'm saying, man. Like it was just going to be a production year, and I sort of met that goal, you know. So I got a bunch of issues done ahead of time before I even really started talking with publishers. And the thing that kind of sealed the deal with Fanta was sort of what we talked about earlier, the fact that, you know, they're not going to sort of kowtow to crybabies or anything like that, because this is a hardcore comic. You know, there's going to be a lot of viciousness in here, man. You know, they're not going to really listen to that goofball shit. But also, I like Free Comic Book Day. And if you let me make a Free Comic Book Day comic, like, I'll probably steer in your direction for sure. You know, I think from the past 6 years, I don't think every year, I think one of us Pittsburgh dudes had a free comic come out on Free Comic Book Day. You know, this is going to be my third one. I think Tom had 3. You know, Jimmy had 1 or 2 himself. So it's like every year one of us has it, and it's just like in our own little group we see the value in it. You know, it's going to be the biggest selling issue of any of the issues. So don't just collect some stuff that's already coming out and give like a sampler. That is so weak. But that's what all the other publishers do, and therein lies opportunity. So it's like I spent, man, at least 2.5 months grinding, like making this comic that I will not make $1 from that specific unit, but it's an amazing business card. You know,
is that stuff going to be in the regular issues eventually, or in the collected edition, or something like that, or what?
Yeah, down the line, it's like, well, why not make something that collects everything? Because they are unique stories, and the comic was originally constructed with the idea that it was going to be a May Free Comic Book Day. So the way I put that comic together is 5 stories in there, and 4 of the stories correspond with the first 4 issues. So they're almost like preludes, and they fit like very tidily in with each issue, but they're their own kind of singular story. You know, sort of designed to make you curious about this world, sell you on a couple of the rules of the universe, show off some cool characters. You know, like the people you see in the bottom corner there.
As a retailer, when I looked at Free Comic Book Day books, I picked and chose. Like there became so many of them that I would no way am I carrying this thing unless it can act as a promotional device that I can give it to someone and they're going to come back for more, right? So this is, you're making absolutely the best move you can make. And I'm going to say, though, this will be one of the lesser ordered free comic book day books compared to Marvel or DC or probably the Scholastic or all ages stuff. So tell your shop owners, don't take it for granted that they're going to have copies of Red Room. Tell them before free comic book day, you really want that Red Room freebie because it's going to be hard to find afterwards.
I'm gonna make that push, like whenever it gets closer to time, because I think we're dealing with an August free comic book day at this point, right? Something like August 20 something. So it's like when kids are going back to school, which is a good strategic time, I think. When it gets closer to time, I'll be making the kayfabe videos and doing stuff like that to just like get the awareness out there, because we do have a very small landscape when it comes to the comic book medium, certainly in the direct market, where you just simply cannot take stuff for granted that the shop owner is going to be able to scoop it up, man. And the margins historically have always been thin, super razor thin, and I'm coming at you with like a new product that definitely is not for everybody. So it's kind of always been my mentality. If I've never borrowed $1 from a soul, right? But I do consider this the function of like accepting a publisher, like they are going in the red for me, and I feel a responsibility to make sure that they make their money back, at the very, very least. Like ideally I want them to make some money, man, because I want to keep making comics forever and not take up somebody's spot, because if you screw up a publisher's money, now they're not publishing other stuff. Like it could be this weird trickle down effect. In that same breath, I don't want stores to lose $1, so it's like I see all sides of the argument. But what I will say here and now is that, like, we have this exponentially growing audience with our YouTube channel, and every video that we put together, like Jimmy and I will be screaming from the mountaintops the projects that we're working on. So we have an extra set of tools that maybe the average cartoonist doesn't when it comes to the direct market game and showing up in diamond previews, all of that. And we're not going to stop, man. We're going to stay on the hustle, and we're going to stay putting the word out on the streets, because the audience is exponentially growing. Like it took us like almost a year to hit our first 10,000, took us 6 months to hit our second, took us like 4 months to hit 30,000, and it's gonna take less time for us to get 40,000 subscribers, and we're gonna be relentless. We're gonna keep growing this thing, and it's this like cyclical little cottage business that Jimmy and I are running, man, where it's like we have comics is the main job, the main gig, do that 6 days a week, do the YouTube thing that, if we did this conversation in like 5 years, like the kayfabe might be the most popular thing that we're known for. When we recorded, what day is this today? Friday?
Yeah.
We recorded yesterday. Like, I don't really bind myself to a clock in these COVID times, man.
Right.
Or a calendar. So we recorded yesterday, and just in conversation, it's like we were looking at some metrics, and we did a video about like Tim Vigil Batman bootleg thing that, he drew a Batman comic in the Tim Vigil way. And like more people have seen that video than can fill Heinz Field, man, where the Pittsburgh Steelers play. That's trippy shit, man.
I love them Steelers.
You say that too authentically. Have you been to Pittsburgh?
Dude, I was born in Pittsburgh.
Oh, for real?
Dude, I'm Pittsburgh through and through. Oh, you got to go back. Okay, here's a good point to plug. I'll plug my Jim interview where we did Spot the Pittsburgh Shoehorn, and I showed off all my Pittsburghian knowledge.
I remember that. But I thought that was research you did specifically for Jim. He might feel less special now.
Well, it was. I lived in Pittsburgh till I was 1. All right, and then I moved to San Jose, California.
Okay, that's fair. A lot of Silicon Valley people are coming. They discovered Pittsburgh now, man. So, because the real estate ain't anything. Like you could buy a whole block for the cost of, a nice apartment in the Tenderloin or whatever.
Oh, dude, I had a customer in San Jose. He sold at the top of the market. Well, then at the top of the market in San Jose, and moved to Pittsburgh. And he sold like a 2-bedroom nothing in Willow Glen, the neighborhood my store was in, to buy just what you said, like a palatial spread on land and everything else.
Oh yeah.
And he loves it.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. A good place to be a cartoonist, man, because you could live and function as an artist without doing demeaning art jobs or something like that that you really don't want to be doing. And you could pay all your bills, you could live, you could function, you could prosper, you could live a nice life, man, and take care of all of that. But the thing that you have to put up with is like very cold winter. As a cartoonist,
Yes.
that shouldn't matter, because you should be inside making comics for the better portion of the year anyhow. There's a reason why the Chicago scene has been multi-generational for a million years. There's a reason why Center for Cartoon Studies is in frickin' Vermont. You know what I'm saying? Kubert School is in Dover, New Jersey. Foot of snow every winter kind of joint.
Okay.
Man.
That's one thing I meant to ask you about that we didn't touch on before we get out of here. We'll get out of here pretty soon, but I want to ask you about the Kubert School, because Joe Kubert, right? Like, amazing as an artist, but his legacy as a teacher. I mean, just as the draftsman, dynamic composition and hitting those deadlines. Tell me about like your experience, why you went to Kubert, what you got out of it, would you recommend it?
I discovered the school in the comic book ads in the 90s, man. It was that very particular stuff. You saw that Tarzan looking character with that little lizard. Yep. You saw the
it was Tor, right? It was from his Tor books, I think, maybe.
Yeah, we called him Torzan.
Torzan.
But then you see that list of alumni, and it's a fly list, man. Like at the time, it was like Lee Weeks would be a name that they were extolling the virtues of, and I was down with Daredevil. I was down with the Gambit miniseries. I love that shit. Steve Bissette, Tim Truman. I loved Grim Jack. So it was like all these artists.
I didn't know Truman went there. I didn't.
In like the second or third, and he was there at a time when he was friends with Veitch and Bissette and those dudes. So it was a different time in the 90s growing up. Like, even though there was a speculator boom and a lot more people were buying comics than the average bear, doesn't mean they were reading those things, man. But I was. Right. So a lot of kids in school had comics, never opened them, had nobody to talk to about comics at all, right? Until I met Jim, like when I was like at 20 years old. So my thought was go to the Kubert School, and leading up to that, I was reading every interview with every QB whose work I responded to. So I would read the Tim Truman interviews in Comics Journal, and he would talk about the Flegels, which is the Flegels are the EC guys. The Flying Dutchmen were the first gen Kubert students, man. Rick Veitch, Toddleben, Steve Bissette, Ron Randall, Tom Yates, and a couple other people. So I was thinking, like, I have to leave Pittsburgh to go find my Flying Dutchman. But when I went there, it was real goofy, because like everybody that I was in school with, they would talk all kinds of crap on Liefeld and McFarlane and stuff, even though like they were of the same peer group, but the stuff they were jock riding would be Fathom Comics, and you know what I'm saying, like that kind of stuff. So it's like you're dissing this one thing, but you're just on Witchblade, like the current version of the same shit.
Yeah.
So I didn't gel with anybody, but I am a visual learner. And there were some cool teachers that just let me watch you ink with a good brush, and then have the time and the space to apply it. Like I used that school as plausible deniability to say no to a lot of social functions, so I could just hang out and draw. There would be tremendous guilt as a kid growing up. Like my folks, they never put any drama on my head. They let me always do my thing, but I could just tell that it would feel weird for them, man. That like, so what'd you do? You just drew all day? Like, yeah. I'm gonna make comics one day, and then you become a teenager, and now you have the homies who have driver's license. So that extends the possibilities of the shenanigans and bullshit you could get into. So that being taken away from that was kind of crucial for me, man, because a lot of knucklehead friends, we got into a lot of goofball stuff.
I'll bet.
But
going to Kubert, like everything you hear from other cartoons, like you hear, Art School Confidential, right? Dan Clowes. It's like, dude, they not only are not prepared to teach you the fundamentals of comics or cartooning at all, they're actively dissing it as, and I think that even exists to this day in more hoity-toity art school environments. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's the earlier generation, but do you think that snobbery is still in place?
Yeah, I have no idea. Can't speak to that at all, man. Because like the Kubert School is comic book school, right?
Yeah,
like so it's like it's comic centric, but there was definitely a lot of negative thinking, and unfortunately, like in these kinds of scenarios, the person teaching there has the time to be there to teach. You know what I'm saying? They're not necessarily bogged down with a very large body of deadlines or whatever. I guess maybe some of them were, they burnt the candle at both ends. Can't speak for them, but essentially, the people who I had as instructors, like a lot of lessons that I learned were kind of like what and what not to do in a career,
right?
Because I just don't want to be beholden to. I have my own authority problems, man. I'm not trying to have a boss. That's a joke to me. My parents didn't raise me to be that way.
I feel you did.
So the way for a school to kind of get certain kinds of funding and possibilities and certain kinds of opportunity, like as an institution, you got to have some job placement ratings, right? You got to send these kids out who got their Pell Grants and tens of thousands, if not $100,000 worth of debt. They got to start to become earners. Got to pay these bills back, man. And that's what the school was teaching you. It teaches you to be a hack because it's them hedging their bets because they want you to have a job. So it would be like, this is how you draw illustrations for a coloring book. And I'm like, man, I really spent so much of my young life living on paper because I want to do this and I want to do that. And man, if I had to like subsidize that by drawing coloring book illustrations, that'd be tough, man.
I don't know. Then again, though, you look at some of the old best pros and they were like, shit, dude, I'll draw whatever. Give me an Underoos ad and I'll draw the shit out of that thing. You know what I mean? And I'll pay my mortgage with it and be happy. Yeah,
but it's that whole argument of the system that we live in as the lowest rung of this system that we live in. If you are going to participate, really is selling labor for $1.
Yeah.
So the money comes in, and now you got to spend it on bills. Like I like the idea of cash flow assets, and if you make successful books, that's what they are.
It's passive income after the fact, right? Like once you've put in the work and got it out there, if it's any good, it's going to keep making you money and opportunity.
Well, no, not if it's any good, because there are so many good comics that that people just aren't supporting, and I don't know the answer for that. It just has to sell. Like it's like selling is the key. Truly, it would be nice if the world was a meritocracy. But, I'll sell you some magic beans if you think that's the way the world operates.
Well, I like the way you're thinking, Ed. I like the fact that you're into like, I'm going to put this thing out monthly. That's amazing. I don't know. You're reading Ginseng Roots by Craig Thompson?
No, okay. I don't see too much.
Okay. Cause he's doing it bi-monthly, and dude, it's the best thing on the shelves. 100%. It's such an Ed book. You got to look at that thing, man.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for the recommendation, man.
You will really, I mean, it is blankets. It puts blankets to shame. It's the best thing he's ever done for sure.
Yeah, good for him, man. I like the idea of the pamphlet, like of if it seems like the the direct market has been staggering around for a million years, right? Like nobody has felt secure in the direct market for a long, long time. So this is my effort to just like, well, let me do one. Let me do one at least, man. While it still exists, while it's still
Heck
here.
yeah, dude. Hell yeah.
I'm in a position where I could play with the house's money a touch and try some things, man. So like, this is my idea of like, let me give myself the working parameters of, the classic journeyman cartoonists that work within that system. Like, once again, it sort of circles back to earlier things we were talking about, where it's just like everything that I do is kind of just an exercise for myself. And I kind of block everybody out in a lot. So like, I don't see the work of my peers, man, unless they hook me up or something, because I just got to do my own thing.
Yeah.
The effort with this is let me play around with the system and just cosplay as a monthly cartoonist and see how that works. The thing I'm going to do next, maybe I'm going to do a four panel daily strip for 365 days, and maybe do color ones on Sundays to give myself those parameters. You see these books here, dude, like on this very bookshelf, it's like, okay, Peanuts, Dick Tracy, we have Milt Caniff here, we have Floyd Gottfredson. All of these people took four blank squares and did something different with it every single day for many decades. Shouts to IDW for just completing. I went to the comic shop and just got the very last volume of the Chester Gold Dick Tracy, which is like event comics to me. Like I drop everything to read those. And so now it's like I read every single Dick Tracy strip, man, 46 years worth of comics.
Do you have the Sunday Press? Do you have the Sunday Press one?
No, I don't. I don't have, I mean, like the big books I have were artist edition, so I don't have like the Nemo or any of that.
We had Peter Maresca, the publisher. We had him in here, and we talked about all those books and the history and how they came about.
Amazing service that they do. It's incredible. Those books and just getting these hardcover, it's like, I have no problem with double dipping when it comes to issues and trades, man. But when we're starting to deal with $30, $100 books, that just ain't me, man. I gotta draw a line somewhere.
Well, you gotta start reaching out to publishers then to send them. They'll send you your book because you'll review them on your show, man, and get a lot of praise and get free comics. That's what I do.
The goofy thing, and see, like I don't have the greatest respect for like the industry of comics in a lot of ways, because what you just said is a no-brainer and is what they should be doing. And I'm not even speaking for myself. It's like, how do you not, like, we'll circle it back, man, to like the WYSIWYG stuff. I was on the grind so hard when it came to getting the word out, right? And it was a self-published comic with no ISBN number that I printed on demand using glulu.com. And I got a page in Wired magazine. It's like, those dudes who are working for the big two in New York and I guess LA, like, get off your like 2-hour lunches and like maybe do something for this medium, man. I often feel like these cats are more excited, like when they tell people about what their gig is, they probably, to a civilian that isn't a part of our culture, like they're probably saying stuff like, I work at Marvel Comics, the movies, like Avengers, I work for the, they're not talking about comics. They don't give a shit. I've worked with people who are like, don't even know how the pages, Ed, what font do you use? Don't insult me, man. I know how to sling an Ames guide. That's for hand lettering for those of you who don't know.
We've got, man. And I know you got to get out of here. You got books to draw. Before we go, I want to touch it.
28 pages every 30 days I got to draw.
Well, just like another guy that I love who's going to be on the show next week, who's, I think, one of the very greatest working in comics today, Brian Hitch. We're going to have him next week. Man. And that guy's dedicated himself. He's putting out monthly books now, like on time, and he has a dedication. If you follow him on Twitter, it's clear he is like, has a dedication to being like far more, keep the level of quality super high, but like hit deadlines. It's important to him.
Yeah, I mean that's an important function of the game. Like depending on how you want to play it. If you want to do a monthly comic, well, you better hit your deadlines. If you want to be an artist, take your time and spend however long you want, like on your pages. These are all choices that we can make, and props to him for setting up goals and knocking them down.
Okay, before we get you out of here, I got to ask some YouTube-y stuff from you. So it looks like, there was a change in format in Cartoonist Kayfabe, and you went from these long-form interviews and long-form things to shorter daily content. Why, and is that working out for you? I think I know why, and I think it is, but you tell me.
I wonder, what do you think the why is?
Oh, because that is the recommended algorithm for algorithmic success. YouTube recommends daily content. I know that.
You give us so much credit. So the interviews, we've had a big conversation here today, man, and I'm working on a monthly comic. Setting up these interviews, lots of work. Like how long did it take for us to hook this up?
Too long.
Yeah, and I'm super happy to be here. So thanks for working with me and having me. But it takes some back end effort that
it does.
It's like I'm kind of unwilling to do right now. We'll go back to it, no doubt.
Yeah.
But also we have found just success together. Just getting up. I mean, we get up at 5 a.m. He lives crosstown. Get up at 5 a.m. He gets up at 5 a.m. Hit him up. All right, dude, I'm awake, setting everything up. By the time he's here, the pot of coffee is made. Everybody's got a couple of cups, and we sit down. We just knock these things out, and we do a handful. We do a week's worth, week and a half worth. We get done by noon. I edit my half. He edits his half. Get done by 4. And then put 8 hours in on comics, man. So it's like we've now created a system where we can put up daily stuff, and just we don't have to filibuster about every old thing. We could just grab a cool issue of something and talk some shit for a little bit. Do them daily, because it does seem we're definitely feeding a machine that's like ever growing and in an exponential fashion.
Yeah.
And frankly, the average viewer and or comics fan, I mean, this is going back to the old days, man. The mere fact that people supported Fantastic Four comics when Jack Kirby left kind of says everything about what people think of the creator. So the interviews are great for me spiritually and to like get some insights and stuff, but people don't watch them. They would much rather, it's the balance that we're trying to strike too, because very often people want to see us talk about the comics that they already know, like the back of their hands, and just see what we have to say about them.
Yes.
But some of that stuff is mind numbing, it pickles our brains after a while. So it's like, we got to
can't talk about Dark Knight Returns so many times, right? Like there's only...
Well, you do your Dark Knight Returns, and I mean that's a good comic, like that's
what I mean. You can burn through all the great stuff so quickly, and then it's like, what are you going to do then? I like what you're doing with smaller individual issues. I got my wish list, dude. Can I bounce a couple issues off you that I want to see you talk about? Yeah,
please do, man. I'm going to make note of this. We're at the 140 mark, and I will revisit this and add it to my Google document.
Okay,
if I agree,
I want to. Okay, I think you're going to like, because you talk about Michael Golden and you brought in G.I. Joe and stuff. But, dude, where is Giant Size Avengers number 10? Where's Batman Special 1982?
I have that one pulled. If anybody wants to send me Avengers Annual number 10, we'll do a video the next day. I'm looking at
I got reprints, dude. They reprinted a $1 edition of it. I got like 10 of them. I'll send you some.
Dude, that's a bet. I've been wanting to do that one for a while. I keep looking at my essentials because
that's the book, right, dude? If you want to talk Golden, that is a book and a half, man.
It's incredible. Like I basically pulled all my Golden stuff, man. Like I got the noms ready to go, got the Micronauts ready to go.
Okay.
I pulled that Batman Special, and you know what? I've had it I never read it. Like
Dude.
I can't tell you how long I had this comic,
Dude.
so I'm stoked to read it.
And dude, there's a graphic novel follow-up. Okay. They wrote a sequel to it recently in more recent years. Rags Morales, I think, did the artwork that followed it up with like a mini series, and they tried to do it in kind of a Golden-esque style. That's worth looking at too. I talk about it. I have a video all about it. You guys, if you can't wait for that Cartoonist Kayfabe video, go check down there and click and look for Batman's. Okay, and I want to hear you talk about, you love Art Adams, Gumby, summer, winter fun specials.
You know what? I wish if we had this to do over again, right? I would have my little half box right here, so that when you say these things, I just pull them out, because that's a bet too. Like that's ready to go. Both of them, man.
Dude, read Fleming, World's Toughest Milkman, Flaming Carrot.
I don't know those comics so well.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay.
By the way, that's of the same era. Like that's a Mage, that's Elemental.
Yes. So do Elementals, dude. If you haven't read it, you gotta go and read it, because there's no authority without Elementals, and there's no modern like adult superheroes. They were doing it way better then. Willingham did it better then than it's ever been done since, I think.
That was always the attraction when we would read about it in like Wizard magazine. It's like, oh man, they have boobs in there or something, you know, like there's some sort of, that's how they would sell it to the kids. Like, yeah, man, they had.
Well, that's once a gentleman named Andrew Rev took over the IP. Right?
Oh, I know. Like, what a guy, huh?
I've had long conversations. He's called me. He wants to be on this show. I welcome him to come on this show. I would love to talk about his rich legacy in this medium sometime. Andrew, call me.
He bought North Star Publishing then, and you know, that's the house that Tim Vigil built with Faust and you know, some other things. And when he's the publisher, and I guess Brian Azzarello was like editor in chief, there are like 4 different titles where they kind of exploit James O'Barr's name on the covers, and maybe James O'Barr draws a cover, and it's the same comic called Zeitgeist in every single one of these weird anthologies, man. It's just like there's all this crazy stuff, man. Like we should definitely get off the topic, because I feel like that's kind of that.
Yeah, I gotta get out of here anyway. There's too many good things to talk about in comics than dwell on the bad stuff. That's why I really appreciated Cartoonist Kayfabe. And dude, you can't know what it meant to me when I first started and I did my Jeppy live stream, and I'm watching you guys, and you mentioned my show in passing. You said something like, well, maybe there's one other YouTube channel out there that's that kind of gets it. And I think there's a few, but I really appreciated that, dude. It meant a lot to me.
It was a good conversation, man. Is that a good I am curious. There's no more on your list, man? On your little list of things?
Oh, dude, there's a million of them. Are you kidding? So I'm drawing. Oh, yeah. Okay, the one I was going to say. Cowboy Wally Show.
Yeah.
By Kyle Baker. Like,
yeah, we got to do. There's a lot of Kyle Baker comics that we have pulled and ready to go.
But
like we definitely have a strategy with how we're putting the stuff out there, man. And I want to create a system where the stuff that we talk about that's the least popular still gets like 10,000 views overnight. You know what I'm saying, man? So we're hot shotting it for now. We're going to continue hot shotting it till we exhaust that stuff. And then we're going to start
meaning the cream of the crop of the canon.
And definitely not the cream of the crop of the canon. The stuff that a million people will look at because there's a difference.
Oh, okay,
you know
okay. So
Spawn
give
is
me an
not the cream
example
of
of
the
something
crop.
that's like give me an example of something that's too cool or whatever that you don't think will get enough that you really would like to talk about.
I mean, I could put like real world examples, man, where it's like there's empirical data, like Ed the Happy Clown is a great comic, man. It's an incredible comic to share, and it did a lot for me and Jim. And nobody, 6,000 people or whatever, and that's fine.
Yeah,
but the bottom line.
And I'd kill for those kind of views, Ed. I'd kill for that on my as hard as it is for you guys, maybe niche content comics. It's ridiculous over here on this channel. We're growing, but It's not easy.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to say for just tenacity, and the kayfabe channel is kind of based on these retro game video channels that I dug. Like we started with the Wizard magazine episodes, and that was a function of having these wizards kind of collect dust. And I saw this one guy's channel who was like going through Nintendo Powers, and I'm like,
yeah,
I could put these stupid wizards to use, man. And that guy who ran that channel, he's got over 6 figures worth of audience at this point. But when he hit the 6-figure mark, he was laying out some metrics, and it took him something like 3 years to get his first 1,000 people.
Okay. That feels good to know, man. It took me a year to get 1,000.
Yeah, exactly. So like, yeah, you're exponentially doing better than this guy who has the 6-figure mark, man. Tenacity is a big part of the game. Just keep rocking.
Yeah, stick with it. Keep doing it, man. And I appreciate that from you, man. I thank you. Thank you for your time and your efforts, everything you're doing on Cartoonist Kayfabe. But really, honestly, that's second to putting out great comics. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for going this extra mile, recording from your red room and sporting half a head for the entirety of our broadcast.
Yeah, my babysitter's knocking on my door right now. I have got to go. So, Ed, I will see you around. Thank you so much, man. Maybe I could reach out to you in email sometime, and maybe we could chat again in the future if you got other stuff to promote.
Word up, man. Let's make it happen. Thanks for having me, dude.
Thank you, man. Okay. And thank you, everybody. Look, I got to go. My babysitter's here. I'm sorry. I'm going to roll the closing credits and get out of here. But I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you for subscribing. I want to thank you for clicking that bell. I want you to thank you for clicking like. I want to thank you for clicking don't like if you don't like it, but leave a comment either way. The comments are really important. They help us engage the algorithm and grow this channel. So we're going to see you next week. I'm going to have another amazing guest. I've got Brian Hitch. Who's better than Brian Hitch? I don't know. We're going to talk to him about all the great stuff he's done and all the great stuff he's doing. When are we going to do that, though? We're going to do that at a certain point in the future known as next time.